What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Join me here this afternoon to talk about the Miami Dolphins and their team preview. My guy from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, Jay McLovin. Jay, what's going on, my friend? And how do you think these Dolphins are going to do out there in the AFC East?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Logan. Obviously, we just came off the Bills, and I told you I was going to explain more about what I meant about the Dolphins and maybe one of the things that might be a hindrance for them, and we're going to talk exactly that. We'll start off. I do believe if this team can stay healthy, I think they're going to win the division. I told you I think the Jets are going to come in second and then so forth with the Bills and New England, respectively. I look at this. I'm going to start off with the running back core, and we'll look at each position real quick. You look at Mostert, who did 209 rushes for 1,012 and 18 touchdowns. Obviously, James Cook from the Bills outdid him by about 100 yards, but Mostert got him by about 16 touchdowns. So just let that sink in for a minute. Again, Josh Allen really is doing James Cook no favors. But Mostert is averaging about 4.8. So he's getting about 0.1 better than James Cook last year. And then you look at the – because it's a 1-2 punch. You look at Acne, he put up 103 rushes, about half of what Mostert did for 800 yards, just a couple hundred less, and 8 touchdowns. So that gives him a 7.8 average. So when you get a guy who's almost at 5 yards a carry and a guy who's at almost 8 yards a carry, if that's your 1-2 punch and you got 26 touchdowns to prove it, I mean, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch, Logan, for your run game. Number one. Number two, Tua was healthy last year. And because he was healthy, he was first in the league for yardage at 4,624 with 29 touchdowns, 14 picks. Give him a QBR of about 60.8. So Tua, was able to build off of that 2022 season where that's where he had his first breakout. So he's really expanding on that. And this guy is putting up some really good stats. And then you look at this wide receiver core, and this is a really good wide receiving core. You have Hill at age 30 that put up 119 receptions at almost 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns. Next in line was Waddle right underneath him at 72 receptions at 1,014 and 4 touchdowns. And then you have OBJ, who's just kind of the guy that gets, every now and again catch at 35 receptions at 565. So, and then you got, of course, tight end Geno Smith that they picked up from New England this year in free agency, who gave you 50 receptions at 582 and 3. What I like about Geno Smith is he's a big body who can leap and grab the balls in the end zone. So that's a really super good end zone target for Tua to throw to. So, they were a really, really good offense over there in Miami. When I look at the defense, this is where things start to get a little crazy. The biggest issue for this Miami defense is clearly at linebacker. Bradley Chubb was lost last year with a torn ACL. Jalen Phillips tore his Achilles. And then Andrew Van Ginkel had a foot injury, but Andrew Van Ginkel's not even there now. He went off and jetted for Minnesota. So they have a glaring issue right there at the linebacker spot. Can these two guys come back in time to start the season? It's going to be very iffy. And if they do start the regular season, how effective will they really be? And could it lead to further injuries down the road if he come back too soon? To the point where I think McDaniel had to actually pull Chubb and Phillips aside and say, hey, look, guys, you guys take a little time off from the rehab room. You guys are literally eating, living, and breathing and shitting in this damn place. And it's just we don't want you to kill yourself trying to do it. So they really have to slow down these guys to make sure that their bodies are healing correctly. And it's a good thing and a bad thing because you just don't know when they're going to be ready for the season. Now, they have a new defensive coordinator that they brought over from Baltimore, where it's Anthony Weaver. He used to be the Baltimore Ravens defensive line coach. Well, he got promoted up to defensive coordinator now for Miami, and he should be in line at some point for a head coaching job. I don't think it's going to take too long for him. They signed Shaquille Barrett to a one-year deal from Tampa when he got cut from Tampa. I shouldn't say from Tampa because Tampa actually cut him. And now Shaquille Barrett is coming out and saying, look, Tampa, you screwed up. I know I didn't have a good season last season, but that just gives fuel to my fire, and I'm going to do everything I can to show you what you lost, which proves great dividends for Miami, who is hurting at the linebacking core. So let's see what Shaquille Barrett can do. If he can do what he says he's going to do, could be big trouble for the rest of the league. 2019 to 2021, he put up 37 and a half sacks. The last 2 seasons, he put combined 7 sacks. So he kind of had a little bit of a depletion, but still, he's not, if that's his depletion and he says he's going to come back bigger and better, I am really looking forward to seeing what they get out of Shaquille Barrett. The secondary for this team with Ramsey, Poirier from Buffalo, and Holland looked really, really nice. So the secondary and the front 7 look really, or the front 4 look good. The really question on that defense is going to be that linebacking core. The schedule for these guys is Green Bay, Houston, Jets, and San Francisco. Those would be the possible losses for this Miami team. I had them going 13-4 this year and taking first place. They have not had a playoff win since 2000. They've had 4 winning seasons and 2 playoff berths. Can McDaniel actually get to the AFC showdown? And the Super Bowl remains to be seen, but these guys are looking really, really nice. The new defensive coordinator, Weaver, thinks outside the box. He's great at player development. This could be the Ravens defense 2.0. And if you get that and you combine it with that offense, and if they all stay healthy, this could be a very, very dangerous team. Miami saw 12 O-line combinations last season, but Tua stayed healthy, and he should, like I said, have another continuously great season coming off that 2022 breakout. Also, Weaver will probably deploy Ramsey all over the field. If you know, under Vic Fangio, which obviously is now gone, I think he's now with the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken. Ramsey always covered the high-profile receiver. Well, that's not going to happen this year. He's going to be like Micah Parsons was for the Cowboys, and I think you're going to see him in multiple spots all over the field and trying to figure out, like a chess piece, how he could be most effective, and that could be really huge for this team. Miami has also lost defensive tackle Wilkins to your Raiders, Logan, and he went there and got the payday, but they brought a slew of free agents to try to replace what they're missing alongside of his running mate, Zach Seiler. Seiler had 10 sacks in 23. So who are they going to put on the opposite side of him? Because honestly, I think it's going to be Benito Jones, who they brought in. It could be Tart. It could be Jonathan Harris. It could be Dallas Cowboys, Neville Gallimore, who they brought in. Or it could be Deshaun Ham. Either way, I think Seiler is going to get double teamed, and one of those guys is going to have to pick up the slack when he does, if that front 4 is going to be successful. Last thing I'm going to say, Miami, for the love of God, you have got to have the best record in the league. Otherwise, you're going to go play somebody in cold weather. And let's be honest, Logan, they lost last year to KC in the postseason to the 4th coldest game in NFL history. Cold weather is not Miami's friend. So I suggest highly that they had the best record so they can avoid that. And again, they went 4-10 in the month of December or later. Let that sink in. So Miami's got to do their damage quick, early, and avoid the cold weather as much as humanly possible.
Well said, Jay. Yeah, when I look at this team in Miami, you mentioned Tua was healthy last year, played in all 17 games. Completion percentage just over 69%, which is solid. Threw the ball like a missile, right? Over 4,600 plus yards. Looked great last year. But like you said, the thing that can help him, that can help this team, like I said, 29 touchdowns is good. 14 interceptions, cut that down some. And like you mentioned, he was sacked 29 times because of as you mentioned, multiple O-line combinations. They were just trying to throw something at a wall, seeing what stuck. Bad play, injuries, just nothing was working on them for the O-line last year. Their bread and butter, where they can really do some damage, we saw it last year, is the running back room, like you mentioned with Mostert, who is a solid player, man. He is good. And then Achane, right, who came out of nowhere last year, ran the ball for 800 plus yards. So that's a good 1-2 punch there. Those guys in total got you 26 touchdowns on the year. You can rely more on them this year, I think, if you want to be successful. And then, like you said, with the receiving core this year, you're looking at good players all around. You've got guys. They brought in OBJ, who a lot of people still have some hope for, right? I mean, he could be a guy who has a good game or so, but Jay honestly think his best days are behind him. But you've good players like you look, and of course, Tyreek Hill. How could you forget him? Tyreek Hill is still, like you mentioned, he's a little bit older now. He's in his third. He's just got over 30, but he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. He's still looking like a top receiver in this league. So as long as he's on my team, as long as he's on that team in Miami, they've got a good chance to make some noise happen. Then you've got some young guys like Braylon Sanders, Anthony Schwartz, guys in their mid-20s, Jalen Waddle, right, who could really, after the way that he played last year, just over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, 72 grabs, I think he can still get even better. Which, I mean, this is already one of the best 1-2 combos when you look at this team in terms of wide receiving depth. They brought in Taj Washington out of USC. We'll see how he can do. So I still like this team. Now, what's interesting, though, is when you look, like you said, the tight end room, you've got Jonnu Smith who you're bringing over, along with Smythe. Those are probably going to be your top 2 receivers there in terms of your tight ends. I think Jonnu Smith is really good. We saw him here locally with the Atlanta Falcons here as of late, and he got things done. He's a solid tight end. And I think in the creative offense that they run out there in Miami, I think this could really help out. And he could really thrive in this system. And as you said, you brought up the defense beautifully. You said that they got some guys on there. They got some new help. And like you said, they still got a solid team. They've got some good players. They've got, like you mentioned, of course, guys like Jalen Ramsey, of course, who what can he do this year? Jalen Phillips, how can he come back? Will he be healthy? What can this team do? And then you got guys who they drafted who, I like Storm Duck. You also picked up Grayson Murphy out of UCLA. So they've got some young talent as well as some guys who have been around the league some. Like you mentioned with Jordan Poyer as well, guy who they're bringing over from Buffalo. Marcus May as well. He's 31. He's been around the league for a little while. So I think that this might be the season for Miami to win, not just the East, Jay, but to finally, after 24 years, after 24 years, I think that they're due. I think they're due for a playoff win, Jay. Yeah. And I remember seeing something the other day that head coach out there and Mike McDaniel, who's, as we know, is a character, right, has them on some weird schedules. I don't know if you saw this, Jay. Their meetings start at something. We'll just go, for example, 2:24. They've got to go eat lunch at 1:24. They've got another team meeting at 6:24. And you know why, Jay? Because that number 24, as we've been saying for the whole show, signifies how many years it's been since they last won a playoff game. I like the little small adage that they've got there that he's been working with. I like the little just touch there. But no, man, I think that finally, if you're a Dolphins fan, you're gonna like what we're gonna say. I think this is the season, Jay, that I'm not going out on a limb and saying that they're going to be Super Bowl favorites. I'm not going that far, but I will say I do expect the Miami Dolphins to win this season, the AFC East, because I think that they have looked the best. I think that, as you talked about with the Bills, I think they've taken a step back. New England, I don't think is there quite yet. I think they're still a little bit of ways from rebuilding. And for the Jets, you just got question marks. I think that, for me, when I'm looking at this team on paper, this is the most surefire team. Yeah. They've got a head coach who, everyone seems to like. Tua, if he can stay healthy, one of the best quarterbacks in the division. I think the Dolphins take home the AFC East this year and get a playoff win. And I'll leave it at that. Anything else, I think, is just icing on top of the cake. But I know this is going to be a fun season if you're a Dolphins fan. And it's going to be interesting to see. But, Jay, I appreciate you, buddy, coming on the show, talking some sports with me. Always a good time. We want to hear from you, though. Guys, how will this Dolphins team do this year? Will they win a playoff game? Will they, for the first time in 24 years, will they win the AFC East? Win here in our comment section, Facebook, YouTube. Also, go check out our podcast. You can download every single week. Once again, for Jay McLevin, I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Guys, get out there, watch some Dolphins highlights.